Hello, Unleash community, guys. I am Jared Chapowski. I'm the content manager for Unleash. I'm stepping in for Pranchakana, who's our community manager tonight. He's a little bit under the weather. And tonight we have our first Dev Hangout, so welcome. Guys, we have a huge community joining us from around the world, and some of you are joining us from LinkedIn, some from YouTube. And all of you have this way to communicate with us using the chat function. So just in the comments, if you have any sort of questions throughout today's Hangout, just go ahead and type it in there, and we'll make sure that it's added at the end when we get to the Q&A session. But let's test it out. So in your comment section, just write where you're tuning in from today, whatever country, continent, and we'd like to find out. Cool. And while we're getting those comments, guys, if you're tuning in from YouTube or LinkedIn and would like to get in touch with our GitHub community, the link is on the screen right here. It's github.com/unleash. And if you're tuning in from Slack, or if you want to join our Slack community, it's slack.unleash.run. And before we get into the bulk of today's Hangout, which is we have Statsig, they're going to be showing the connector with Unleash. I'm going to bring on our CTO of Unleash, that's Ivar Ustus, and here we go. I'll bring him on now. Hi, Ivar.
Hello, everyone. So fantastic to be here. I'm so excited about this first developer hangout.
Yeah, this is pretty cool. And Ivar, you said you wanted to talk about something that's new with Unleash right now. So what's going on with this?
Yeah, so we are working on a bunch of things, and we like to talk about what we already have shipped. So one of the things that we have shipped recently is an improvement to the API tokens. So we did implement personal API tokens, meaning that you can have API tokens that follow your own permissions so that they can be more granular in terms of what it can do and cannot do. We also added kind of this improvement last used for API tokens, easier to track where a token is actually in use or if it's not used anymore. Another really big improvement that we did recently was the front-end API. It just takes away the need to use the proxy to integrate with front-end SDKs in the simple use cases. Much easier to get started with Unleash and simplifies a lot of things. But obviously, we still offer the proxy as a way to scale out when you really have high demands in terms of traffic, but then you have the options at least. We did a lot of other smaller and larger improvements to the UI. We made it easier to just get started with Unleash in the first place. We saw that a lot of people struggled just start Unleash, and we felt that was terrible. So now it's just a single Docker command to kind of start Unleash everything you need locally, just one command. So I feel like we do whatever we can to make it at least the onboarding experience as easy as possible. And I think that's important to the community and to everyone kind of exploring this field, to just not have to struggle by setting up everything the first time.
Nice. Cool. And also we have with us today from Statsig, we have John Wilke and Jacken Wong. And so I'm going to go ahead and bring them on and give a quick introduction of who Statsig is.
Perfect. Thanks for the intro. Hey, everyone. Excited to be here hanging out with you. My name is John Wilke. I lead product marketing here at Statsig. And in case you haven't heard of us, Statsig is here to help people use data to build better products. So we're an experimentation and feature management platform. We help companies like Notion, Flipkart, Eventbrite, Univision, companies all over the world are using Statsig to release features, automate their experimentation, and get a comprehensive view of their business performance. Statsig is relatively young. I think we're actually around the same age as Unleash. So we were founded in 2021 by former Facebook engineers like Jaikon. And today we're supporting thousands of experiments across hundreds of millions of users around the world, and super excited to be here today and to be hanging out with everyone.
Nice. And Ivar, I know the community probably knows who you are, but if you could give a quick introduction to Unleash in case we have some new visitors today.
Yeah, sure. So Unleash is the open source feature management platform. It basically make it easier to take control of your feature releases. Kind of building software is hard, and having the ability to to ship code without necessarily releasing the feature to end user enables a lot of things. And then you can take control of when you decide to roll out that feature. You can do it gradually, enable for yourself first, validate that it actually works the way you intended to, start testing on actual users and measure the impact. And then when you're satisfied, when you feel like you actually built something that solves a real problem, that's the time you start releasing that feature to everyone.
Yeah, very cool. And Ivar, maybe you could explain why it's such a good combination to integrate Statsig with Unleash.
Yeah, so the Unleash SDK actually knows who is exposed to what when. It's kind of this authoritative stream of events. We call that impression events in Unleash. And these events can easily be shared with any solution. And Statsig being this real-time product observability platform, it just makes perfect sense to send this data to that platform where you can track any type of metrics that you like. It could be performance metrics, error rates, it could be business KPIs that is super important to you. And then you can use this tool, Statsig tool, together with Unleash to guide you. Is this feature that we are building, is it solving the right problem without the side effects of a lot of errors, poor performance, poor end user experience, all of that. So to me, it's just kind of a perfect match.
Nice. And Jackon, like from your perspective, why connect Statsig with Unleash?
Yeah, of course. So the goal of Statsig is basically we want our users to know what their features are doing, right? So obviously not just Statsig users, but any users who's using feature toggle, feature flags. It would be great if they all have this power. They all know when you are launching a feature, not only you can control the rollout, but also you know what's going behind the scene, how it's affecting your users. Is your new feature affecting your crash rate? Is it increasing latency or encouraging your users to like buy your products more, play more games, that kind of stuff. So that's why we think it's really important that we work with partners like Unleash to enable that. Yes.
Nice. And where do you see your users using analytics in their products?
Actually, all over the place. When people think about analytics, a lot of times you just default to think about like the front end, the purchase, the button clicks. But also we see our users measure latency, measure crashes on their backend on the server. So it's actually really full stack. Everything you can think about. Yeah.
Nice. And we'd love to see this connection with Statsig and Unleash in action. Are you going to be able to show a demo today?
Yes. Happy to.
Okay.
Yeah. All right. I'm gonna present my screen. Okay. Can you all see my screen? Okay.
I should be able to now. Yep.
Okay. All right. So I create this very simple code sandbox app for this demo. But basically, what you have here is a very simple. Let's say you are a game developer and you have like a simple rock scissors game, and you can play it. One thing that you want to build right now is you think maybe the text labels on these buttons are kind of too boring. You want to change it to be emojis. But you Unleash user, right? You want to make sure that this feature is working correctly for your developers first, and then you roll it out slowly to your public users. So what you do is you already have Unleash configured in the app. And then normally what you would do today is put this change behind the feature toggle on Unleash. In this case, I already created a feature toggle. It's called show emoji label. This is how you would release your this new change to your users behind the feature toggle. And let me switch to the tab in Unleash. So what I have here is the Unleash UI, and this is the feature toggle that I just talked about. Right now, I decided to roll this out to 50% of my user base. So I want to see how it performs if my user like this change or not. So right now, 50% of the users will see an emoji button instead of the text button. So let's go back to the demo. Now, I have configured this app so that like every time I refresh the page, a new user ID is generated right here. So you can see random chance, I will see the emoji or the text, depends on my luck, basically. So to connect this with Statsig, basically the way that Statsig works is that Statsig will know what users are exposed to what feature by getting the what we call exposure events, but Unleash calls it impression data, basically, from Unleash to Statsig. And then by knowing which user has seen what feature and also what events each user has triggered, we'll be able to tell you, hey, is this feature improving your metrics or hurting your metrics for your users? So what we created here is what we call a Statsig connector, Statsig Unleash connector. To use it is pretty easy. You just need to create a Statsig account. You can do that at statsig.com. When you have this library imported, we have it currently available on NPM, but we're also going to release this for other languages soon. But let us know if you have any language that you need and we don't support right now. Basically, to use it, you just need to import library, and the first function you want to call is Statsig connector.initialize and give us the client key of your Statsig project. Obviously, you want to start your Unleash client. One of the things that you definitely want to make sure you do is the impression data. This is a new option that Unleash has added to that client. So impression data, all set it to true. This way, it will enable the Unleash client to send all the impression data for your app. It will enable Unleash client to emit those data. Then we can listen to it and send it to Statsig. So once you have initialized the connector, there is this impression event you can listen to on Unleash. So in this case, we're logging who the user is, what's the status of the toggle. And then this is the function you will want to call, Statsig connector.log exposure. Here we're logging the name of the feature, the user ID, and whether the feature toggle is enabled or not. So every time the user has seen the feature or not seen the feature, we will send that information to Statsig. So we can quickly test this. In this session, the user ID is this, and then this feature toggle status is false. So this user has not seen the feature, but even that information is very useful to send to Statsig. What you need to do in Statsig, let me share the Statsig console instead. So here we see is a feature gate. Statsig we call them feature gate. It's a very similar concept. And in this case, you want to make sure the feature gate name and the feature toggle name in Unleash, they match. This is how we know which feature gate to send the exposure event to from Unleash. So in this case, the name is show emoji label, and then you want to make sure the split percentage is 50%, which match what you see in the Unleash toggle. It can be any other percentage as well, but you just need to match what the percentage is in Unleash. And then here what we have is a diagnostic tab. You'll be able to see that for the user that we just saw, they didn't pass this feature. That's why they saw the text version of the game. Now we can try our luck and see the other version of the game to find the random user that, okay. So we got pretty lucky. This time, this user starts at 801, got this feature. And then in a second, we should be able to see this coming into Statsig. There we go. So Statsig just got the information that this user 801 just saw the feature and the status of the feature is passed. So basically, that's all you need to do to connect Statsig with Unleash to get the exposure data from out to Statsig. Now, what Statsig does, once we know, for a feature, who are the users who have this feature, who don't, and then we're able to analyze the events that you send to Statsig and tell you if there's any lift for having this feature on certain metrics that you care about. It's also really easy for you to log any event from the connector. So right here, I have an example. When this page is rendered, I'm logging a game starter event with a user ID. And then there's some map of meta that you can send to Statsig as well to allow you to do aggregation or different kind of like split on this metric when you're doing the analysis. But this is all you need to do to log an event like game started to Statsig. So while I was refreshing this page, I have already logged a few events, so we can take a look over there. So all you need to do is in your Statsig project, go to the metrics tab, and you can see these events are coming through for the users. So for the user 801, we just see the user logged a game starter event. Now, since we have these exposure events and the analytical events together, we'll be able to tell you, hey, how is the feature doing for a user? So we can take a look at our demo project, which has real data, and see what the results would look like. So this is a feature that has 90% pass rate. And you can see at a glance all the metrics that you care about. This feature clearly is doing pretty well. It's increasing the purchase rate, the checkout event, total purchase dollar, all of that. Which gives you confidence to be able to ship this feature to all of your users. Yeah, that's basically the gist of this this connector end-to-end, and really enables the your user to see behind the scene behind your features.
Just a quick question here, Jack, and thanks for the fantastic demo, by the way. Is there any limitations to the number of dimensions that you can enrich the data with? You show the version of the app, but is there any limitations to that?
Oh, are you asking about how many metrics you can see for each feature?
Yeah.
No, there really isn't. It just depends on how many events you log into as different type of events, different types of metrics. And there are many ways for you to ingest events and metrics to us. Not just using the connector, we can also work with your data warehouses, for example.
Yeah, that's super good. So does that also mean that you can aggregate and see people with this feature enabled or that came from different region? Could you kind of drill down that way?
Yes. So along with your user ID, you can also send us your user information, like where they are, what language they speak. Yeah.
Nice. That's super nice. Thanks.
Yeah, very cool. And everyone in the audience, remember that if you have questions yourselves for Jackon, just you can type it in the comment field in LinkedIn or YouTube or wherever you're tuning in from, and we'll get to the questions in the Q&A session afterwards. And first, I got a question for Ivar. Ivar, you tried out environment-specific variants recently, right? And what have you learned so far?
Yeah, so this is a feature we are building. It's a beta or improving. The improvement is in a beta stage for us. It means that we haven't rolled it out to all users yet, but we started exploring this functionality. So currently in Unleash, you have a feature toggle can take variants, but the variance is the same across all environments. And then we had users requesting, but couldn't they be different per environment? And we were thinking, yeah, maybe that's a good idea. So we started building that initial version, and we had a lot of users we know already used variants a lot. So we started testing with these users and show them kind of the new behavior. And the interesting thing that we learned is that some users, they really loved it. Yeah, this is exactly what we need. This will solve so many problems for us. But then we talked to some of the other users that didn't request this feature, and they were like, we hate this feature. Never release this feature to us like this, because we need the variants to be the same across all environments. This is just adding complexity to our workflow. We need to then kind of synchronize all of this. So what we learned, and this is maybe my reflection on this, and my personal opinion is that it's not always easy to measure these things. It's like, it's kind of very personal, and it's more like how you use the product. And some things you actually also need to remember to talk to your end users. But obviously, if you can measure it, And some things are easy. It's like you're building something that is kind of obvious that you should do, like what we did, for instance, for the adding last use to the API tokens is an obvious enhancement. But what we were concerned about were more like the database performance. Did we implement it in a smart way? Because we know we have a lot of traffic and need to kind of not take down everything. So we were more concerned on the performance side and used kind of metrics and measure the performance and use kind of gradual rollout to ensure that. But obviously, if you're building something, and you should always think, which business KPI or what am I trying to improve with this capability or this enhancement or this new feature? And the clearer you get on these things early on, even before you're kind of starting releasing it, the better data you will get, because then you will get the data for what your assumptions, and the crisper and the better assumptions you have initially, I think the more data driven you can be when using Statsig together with Unleash.
Nice. Yeah, very smart. And Jagan, so with the results of the analytics, like how are the results measured?
Yeah. So basically, we are able to connect the events that user generate with the exposure data. Basically, the fact that which user has seen what feature, connect those data together, and then if you know what feature each user has seen, and then what events they will trigger later after they've seen the feature, then you will be able to tell. The basic idea is that, right? You will be able to compute how does a feature affect the chance of someone generating an event afterwards. So the statistic, the stat methodology that we use is just a two-sided t-test, basically. I'm not a statistician, but I know the methodology that we use. We also have documentation that talks about the exact formula that we use to compute the result.
Okay, very cool. And how granular are you able to get with the results? Is it like very, very deep dive stuff, or is this more general results?
Oh yeah, it's like for each event, we'll give you statistical whether there's a lift, how much is a lift, and then whether the lift is statistical significant or not. So that basically means whether you can trust the result or whether it's just a random chance that is up. Yeah.
Okay, cool. And we have some questions from the community, so I'm going to put them on the screen. And guys, like if you have any more questions, feel free to keep asking while we go through them. So the first question we have from Daniel, and it says, which languages does this work with right now?
Hi Daniel. So right now it's working in JavaScript and React. And we're working on bringing this to more languages. So let us know if you need this in a specific language.
Nice. Cool. Easy answer. Next question is from Jean-Baptiste. Can we send more context data to Statsig, or are we limited to the an identifier and a Boolean, whether or not the feature is active?
Yeah, definitely. I think we just touched on that earlier, but basically you can send us not only just the identifier, but other dimensions of the user, other attributes of the user that you want to break down your results by. So if you send us country of the user, then in the result, you not only see how does this metric affect your user base overall, but also be able to see how does it affect users in the US, in the UK, or any other country differently.
Yeah, nice. And then another one from Daniel. It's how many A/B tests can we run at once within one app?
Yeah, the answer is really like as many as you want. The idea is that for any feature that you build, you put it behind the feature toggle, right? In Unleash, that's the safest way to ship any feature. And now if you connect this with Statsig, each of those feature becomes A/B test. There really isn't a limit on how many you can run at once.
Yeah, really cool. And that's it for the audience questions. Ivar, do you have any more questions for Statsig? Statsig, do you have questions for Ivar? Oh, we have another one from Jean-Baptiste. Let's do that first. Here we go. It says, I see that the impression event of Unleash, we have access to the context data, is it forwarded to the Unleash server in the latest version?
No, so in Unleash, we do not send data, context data back to the Unleash API. And this has been a cautious decision to limit the data we collect because we think there are other tools like Statsig that is better suited to do the analytics part, and we would like to integrate well with these tools instead.
Yeah, cool. And one more time.
Yeah, I actually, it's not a question, but I think obviously this is just the beginning of an integration. I think we have a lot of ideas on how we could integrate better with other tools. And I think some of the things that we touched upon here has also learned me a lot of things. I think, for instance, we could make it easier to also facilitate the setup that you need to do in Statsig when you create a feature flag. We could, if we also did an API type of integration on the server side, we could easily create that feature gate automatically in Statsig, so you don't have to do that manually, to make sure that you don't have any typos or misconfigure it or anything like that. I also see the other way around, like you use Statsig to do your analytics, that you have your kind of all your business KPIs and other performance KPIs. But it would be fantastic to get the result back to Unleash so that you could have kind of see in the Unleash UI that, okay, this feature is actually performing bad in this KPI. You should actually go have a look over in Statsig. So I think there is a lot of interesting things that we can build on top of this to connect those two tools even better in the future. So I'm not sure if you agree with that. That's more a statement than a question, but maybe kind of a general kind of thought there.
Yeah, definitely. I think there's a lot that Statsig and Unleash can do after this. Like for example, Statsig right now we're building alert system, right? When your feature is not doing well, we send alerts notifications to users, but we can also have an API that send that information to Unleash and then have that show up in the Unleash console. So that would be like one of the more important, more useful features that integration we can build. Yeah.
Nice. And Ivar, looks like we have another question from Daniel. Any other integrations coming up with Unleash? Aye.
Yeah, definitely. So next year will be the year of integrating better with other tools. We have a lot of plans in this area. We are not ready to share all those plans with everyone at this stage, but this is definitely something we are looking into, and we are collaborating closely with the community to identify which tools make sense to integrate with, because there is a lot of interesting tools that developers already use to build software, and we want to integrate with those that brings the most value first. And I think Statsig is one of those type of tools that we really want to have a good integration story with. But I think there is a lot of other interesting tools that we have started looking into.
Nice. And John, do you have any questions for Ivar before we go?
No, this has been so fun. Not so much a question, but just a plug, I guess, to join the Statsig Slack community. Check out the blog post. I know Unleash has a blog post. Statsig has a blog post. We've got GitHub documentation. So if you like what you saw today, definitely join the communities, reach out, spend some time in the documentation. And thanks so much for hanging out. This has been fun.
Nice. And guys, thanks so much for joining today. Thanks, John. Thanks, Jackon, and thanks, Ivar. Everyone who's attended today, by the way, if you don't have an Unleash t-shirt already, you can get one. And you can have it customized to have it say different things. You can have like V-neck, crew neck, whatever. So go to getunleash.io/shirt. It's a gift from us. It's free. Happy holidays. And if you haven't already, join our communities on Slack and GitHub. And otherwise, we have a webinar coming up if you guys are interested. It's coming up on January 24th. It's quality code, fast delivery. You can have it all. It's pretty popular authors going to be joining us for this. So make sure you put it in your calendar before you forget over the holidays. You might. And if you do forget, just go to our website or keep track of whatever one of our channels. We will be putting the information out again. But thanks again for joining us, guys, and have a good night.